This newly updated Titan Restoration build dominates. You're going to be able to run around in endgame PvE even whilst underpowered, surviving and resisting as much damage as possible. Now Loreley had a nerf last season and Titans running solo with Restoration could no longer sit still on things like a GM and just not die because of how powerful Restoration was. But since the nerf, the usage of this build has gone down massively. So today I'm going to recreate the Titan Loreley build post nerf to make it as effective as possible in endgame PvE. Now although you won't be able to just stand there and not die, it will significantly help you out by allowing you to survive things you probably would have never survived without using the build. And pairing this with some of the game's worst modifiers like attrition, it will actually help you survive even more by doubling up on that restoration. So having the initial restoration from our build will give us that time we need to run over to an attrition well to double it up. Guys, this build is good. It's not as good as it used to be, but it's still worth using for those who struggle to survive in PvE content whilst underpowered, and being at the recommended power level will actually make this build even stronger. So guys, if you like this one, be sure to leave a rating as it really helps me out, and perhaps subscribe to help me reach my goal of 100k as we're pretty close to it. And now without further delay, let's throw some hammers. Now firstly, as always, like every build video, if you do like this one and you want to see more like this, then feel free to view the full collection of new and updated builds down below in the playlist, as I do cover them every week here on the channel and you might just find your new favourite build. But with this one today, you'll be able to play endgame PvE a lot easier because we'll have restoration and resistance from multiple sources, which will massively help you survive damage that would have otherwise killed you. You're going to get restoration infinitely, a damage buff, additional health regen using Wealth Life, damage resistance by using Wealth Tenacity, and combining all these mods together is going to make our restoration somewhat manage to restore our health faster than we lose it from being shot at. Now of course this build is nowhere near as good as it used to be pre-nerf, but it is going to still help you survive incoming fire by adds, and if you have a lot of enemies shooting at you and no possible way to regain that health, then this build is going to help you a lot because we'll have a backup plan for when things go south. So a quick example of how you'll use this build is first put down your barricade, which will give you restoration. Then get a weapon kill to spawn a void elemental well and pick up that well. Picking up the well will give you a damage resistance buff, and then you'll stack this with restoration. You'll get hammer kills to spawn solar wells and solar sunspots, which will also give you restoration, a well of life health regen buff, and a faster ability recharge rate. From here you'll just run around continuously getting melee kills, throwing down barricades, getting restoration, well of life buffs, damage resist buffs, and so on. Eventually you'll come close to death, which is when Loreley is going to kick in and automatically consume your barricade energy to give you restoration. Just remember to keep getting melee kills so you can get health back by picking it up and keep restoration active all the time, while also getting the elemental wells to make surviving a lot easier, because restoration with the nerf on its own is not going to be enough to save you in every situation, especially master content whilst underpowered, as you will still be killable. But the build design here will help you stay alive longer than you would normally without the build, and a backup option for when things go bad is to just throw down a healing grenade, which will trigger restoration and give you a health bump at the same time. So we've got quite a lot of healing things that are going to benefit the build since the restoration Loreley nerf, as it's not going to be enough to handle on its own. Now in terms of what exotic we'll be using, we're going to use the Loreley Helm, and what this does is while you're critically wounded with full class energy or whenever you cast a barricade, you'll create a sunspot at your location with improved restoration effects. Now that restoration is only a ×1 now, which used to be a ×2, and could pretty much out heal anything in the game, so you would never die, but it's not going to be as effective as it once was. But it's still worth using if you ain't got any other better builds, as it's an on-demand restoration whenever you need to regen health, which is the best part about it. It's sort of like a warlock with a healing rift, which is why I like using the build sometimes. Now if you haven't got a Loreley, then you do have alternatives. These are the Mask of the Quiet One, Synthoceps, Hallowfire Heart, Armentarium, Heart of Inmost Light, Phoenix Cradle, and the Path of Burning Steps. Now all these exotics are great choices to use because they have some form of benefit to the same initial design. So Mask of the Quiet One, this will grant class ability energy whenever you're damaged and regain maximum health on kills. Synthoceps is going to be great for buffing your melee and super damage while surrounded. Hallowfire Heart for improving the recharge rate of your abilities. Armentarium for the extra healing grenade. Heart of Inmost Light for the ability spam to get your abilities quicker and deal more damage. Phoenix Cradle so that your sunspots grant restoration to allies who pass through your sunspots. And then the Path of the Burning Steps to grant bonus damage when getting solar final blows. I would strongly recommend sticking to either Loreley or the Heart of Inmost Light when using this build though, for maximum efficiency, as this is what the build is set up to be used with. But like I said, any of the exotics I've mentioned will provide some sort of benefit to the build if you want to use them for whatever reason. Now going over the setup of this build, and there is a dim link below too, you'll first want to run a Titan Solar Sunbreaker subclass with the Hammer of Soul super ability. Then you want to have a Rally Barricade as it has a shorter cooldown, which will be better for our Loreley to use it more often. A Throwing Hammer so we can create sunspots, get instant health and restoration when defeating enemies with it, and then a Healing Grenade for the extra safety as a last resort. Aspects are going to be the Soul Invictus, Solar ability Final Blows, Super Final Blows, and defeating scorched targets creates sunspots, and your abilities regenerate faster while standing inside a sunspot. Sunspots also apply scorch to targets inside, and entering a sunspot applies restoration ×1. This is going to be really good since we always have the ability to generate sunspots by using our Throwing Hammer, as we can pick it straight back up. But the second aspect you want is Roaring Flames, so that Final Blows with solar abilities or ignitions increase the damage of our solar abilities, stacking up to 3 times. And while Roaring Flames is active, our uncharged melee attacks, when we don't have a hammer, will deal solar damage and scorch targets. Honestly, 2 really good aspects to use. I didn't see a point in running the Consecration one, but you can actually get a build of this aspect to insta-kill master champs. It's kind of funny, but that's not what this build is focused around today, as we're all about healing and faster regen on our abilities. So next up, for the fragments, you want to run Ember of Eruption, so that solar ignitions have increased AoE, Ember of Singeing, so our class ability recharges faster when you scorch targets, Ember of Torches, so powered melee attacks against combatants makes us and nearby allies radiant. Now Radiant did get a nerf too, so it's not as good as it used to be, but the extra damage is better than no extra damage, so it's always worth having on, especially for it just being a fragment. But the last one we have is going to be Ember of Solace, so that the radiant and restoration effects applied to us have increased duration. Now you can run an Ember of Imperium if you want to, so that solar weapon or ability final blows extend the duration of those buffs, but that's up to you. It just means that you might want to run solar weapons, but in terms of what weapons to actually use, it really depends what you're doing, so it really doesn't matter unless you're using a Font of Might, which we're not in this build, so you're free to use what you want. As for the mods, like always, I'll start with a helmet and work our way down. So we have Well of Life. This will give us increased health regen when picking up a solar elemental well. Then we have a Harmonic Siphon if you're using solar weapons, which will generate orbs of power. And then our heavy weapons ammo finder mod. For the arms, we're running a Reaping Well Maker so we can spawn in Void Wells, which will be used for another mod separately. But we also have Focusing Strike for extra class energy when we cause damage with our grenade. This thing is great, by the way. You can actually use this and almost get around 4 to 5 barricades up at once. It's kind of crazy. It's like a 3-second cooldown or something, if you can use it right. But anyway, with this, remember to slot on your champion mod if you need. Then in the chest, I'm using Radiant Light for the extra strength to try and get my triple 100 stats. But it's okay if you need to take it off, which is what I did when playing some activities, so I can free up space in my class for other mods, and put the melee well maker in there temporarily. Just make sure you slot in your damage resist mods in the chest, as you will need as much resistance as possible. But moving to the legs, we have Well of Tenacity to use our Void Wells on. This will give us damage resistance too, then a better already for health regen when picking up orbs, and a scavenger mod. Now in the class armor, firstly I have Melee Wellmaker. This one is a must have, but like I said, if you can't fit it in there, throw in another piece, like I did with my Radiant Light. Otherwise you'll want a Lucent Finisher to get heavy ammo from champions, and a utility kickstart. I'm using an extra mod, the Advanced Scout, in my Artifice armor, but you don't need this on, so it's completely up to you. Now if playing solo, you'll want to use the Solo Operative mod for the plus 15% damage to everything, or even a weakened clear if running GLs, but you could even just use both if you wanted to, completely up to you and down to personal preference. But the last and final thing you want to make sure you have is 100 resilience for the extra survivability, as this will give you a 40% damage resistance buff. This is really important. And then if you can, try and max out discipline for the healing grenades, and then strength for the times where you miss with your hammer or lose it. Otherwise, if you don't care about that, go for recovery instead. Now overall I have to say this build is going to be around a 7 out of 10 because the Loreley and restoration can save you in a lot of situations, especially for the times where you can't regen health, or you're constantly being shot at and you need to regen health. Then this will save you in most cases, but since the nerf, it's not the best build in the game, but it's still worth using if you don't have the requirements for other builds like my Titan Void ability build or the Arc one. Definitely give this one a try, especially if you're a newish player, because it might just help you complete a solo flawless dungeon or activity. But guys, that there is your new updated Titan Solo Restoration build with infinite healing post Loreley nerf in Destiny 2 Witch Queen Season of the Seraph. Next, as always, don't forget to check out the full playlist down below for more new, fun and updated builds like this for Season 19 this season, as I do cover them every week here on the channel, and you might just find your new best build. But for now guys, have a good one, and I'll see you all very soon for the next build video. Peace out guys.